Mabel was a young woman, tormented by the chains of her past. At 26, she carried a heavy burden of guilt, stemming from the years of fornication. Seeking spiritual guidance, she stumbled upon Grace Abundance Ministry, a church famous for its charismatic leader, Pastor Zaka. She attended a Sunday service, hoping to find solace in the arms of God. After the service, Mabel approached Pastor Zaka with trembling hands. "Sir, I need help. My life is a mess, and I am struggling with sin. I have tried to stop, but I keep falling," she confessed, tears streaming down her face. Pastor Zaka placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, his face in marks of concern.
My daughter, God brought you here for a reason. Your healings begin now. I will pray for you, and we will walk through this journey together.
He said solemnly. Mabel felt a flicker of hope as she left his office. He had asked her for her phone number, saying he would check on her and guide her spiritually. Little did she know that the man she had just entrusted her struggles to was anything but holy. The following day, Mabel's phone buzzed with a message. It was Pastor Zaka.
Good morning, my daughter. I hope you woke up strong in the Lord.
It read. She smiled, grateful for his thoughtfulness, and replied with a polite thank you. But as days passed, the tone of his message shifted.
Mabel, you are such a beautiful woman. God has truly blessed you.
One message read. She dismissed it as a harmless compliment. However, his next message made her pause. It was a late night text.
I can't stop thinking about you. There's something about you that draws me in.
Mabel was stunned. "Pastor, I think this is inappropriate," she replied hesitantly. His response came swiftly.
Don't misunderstand me, my dear. I'm only appreciating the beauty God has given you. Let's talk more tomorrow.
The situation escalated when Mabel received a photo from him, a nude picture of the pastor himself. Shocked and disgusted, she blocked his number. But Pastor Zaka wasn't one to give up easily. He called her repeatedly, leaving voicemails, pleading with her to meet him again, claiming it was for her spiritual growth. After days of ignoring his calls, Mabel reluctantly agreed to meet Pastor Zaka in his office, hoping to confront him about his inappropriate behavior. "Pastor, I came to you for spiritual guidance. Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice trembling. Pastor Zaka smiled, masking his intentions.
Mabel, you are overthinking this. Let's sit and pray about your struggles.
He handed her a drink, insisting she relax before they began. Unwilling to appear rude, she took a few sips. Minutes later, her vision blurred and her body weakened. When Mabel regained consciousness, she was horrified to find her clothes disheveled. Tears streamed down her face as the reality of what happened set in. "You violated me!" she screamed. But Pastor Zaka smirked.
Watch your tongue, young lady. No one will believe you.
He said coldly. Broken and ashamed, Mabel fled, too scared to speak out. The following Sunday, Mabel sat at the back of the church, her heart heavy with grief. She avoided Pastor Zaka's gaze as he stepped up to the pulpit, his voice booming with authority.
The devil is roaming amongst us, using fake pastors to lead the youth astray.
He preached, glancing pointedly at Mabel. Mabel clenched her fists as he continued.
We must remain zealous for God and resist temptation at all costs.
The congregation erupted in applause, unaware of the irony. Mabel's tears flowed silently as she watched the man who had defied her act as though he was a saint. Pastor Zaka's deceitful practices extended beyond Mabel. During one service, he claimed to have received a vision about Sister Grace, a wealthy widow.
The Lord showed me a dark spirit hovering over your family.
He declared.
Only a special seed of 500,000 can break this curse.
Terrified, Sister Grace agreed, selling her late husband's property to raise the money. Thank you, Pastor. I will do anything to protect my children, she said tearfully. But the supposed cost never lifted, and Grace was left destitute. White Zaka used the money to fund his lavish lifestyle. Pastor Zaka's reputation as a healer spread throughout the town. People traveled far and wide, hoping to experience his miracles. One day, a young woman named Chika came to the church, seeking deliverance from a long-standing illness. Pastor, I have faith that God will heal me through your prayers, she said, her voice full of hope. Pastor Zaka assured her that God has revealed to him the source of her sickness and that he could cure it.
But first, you must sow a seed of faith.
He instructed, asking for 100,000 naira. Desperate, Chika handed over the money. After praying over her for a few minutes, Pastor Zaka proclaimed,
Your healing is done. Go in peace.
However, Chika's condition worsened after the so-called healing. The church members began to whisper among themselves, realizing that no one had ever truly been healed by Pastor Zaka's miracles. His claims of divine visions were nothing but lies, carefully crafted to manipulate his followers into giving him money. One evening, a man named Kalu, who had been attending the church for months, confronted Pastor Zaka.
Pastor, you took advantage of my wife. She has been drained emotionally and financially by your lies. You promised her prosperity, but all she's gotten is hardship.
Kalu said, his eyes burning with anger. Pastor Zaka chuckled darkly.
Kalu, don't make a sin. The Lord has blessed her, and if she is struggling, it's because she lacks faith.
He said dismissively. But Kalu wasn't going to back down.
You are a fraud. I have seen through your lies.
He shouted. Kalu's words spread like wildfire, and rumors of Pastor Zaka's true nature began to reach more and more people. His manipulation and deceitful tactics were no longer a secret, and some members started to leave the church, realizing they had been led astray. As the whispers about Pastor Zaka's true nature grew louder, so did his desperation to maintain control. He began to tighten his grips on the church's finances, demanding that members contribute even more for spiritual advancement.
If you want to see God's blessings, you must sow a sacrificial seed.
He preached, using guilt and fear to manipulate the congregation. Despite the growing unrest, some members continued to follow him blindly, fearful of what might happen if they left. Pastor, please don't let us down. We need your anointing to survive, one elderly woman begged him after church. Pastor Zaka smiled, his greed masked by a facade of pity.
Don't worry, my child. Your faith will carry you through. Keep sowing, and God will bless you abundantly.
He promised, though he had no intentions of ever helping anyone but himself. Mabel's anguish continued to eat away at her, but she kept her silence, too afraid to speak out against Pastor Zaka. But one fateful night, after a particularly cruel sermon mocking those who had fallen prey to false teachings, Mabel couldn't take it any longer. She stood up during the service, her voice shaking but determined. Pastor Zaka, you are a fraud. You took advantage of me, and now you are mocking others in the name of God. You are a wolf in sheep's clothing. The congregation gasped as Mabel's words echoed through the church. Pastor Zaka's face turned red with fury.
How dare you accuse me like this?
He roared, his calm demeanor from earlier now replaced with anger. I have seen your true face, Pastor. You prey on the vulnerable and use the name of God to line your pockets. Mabel continued, her voice growing stronger. The room was silenced as her words sunk in, and a few brave souls began to rise from their seats, realizing the truth in her accusations. Mabel's confrontation was just the beginning. As the weeks passed, more people who had fallen victims to Pastor Zaka's deceit began to speak out. A former church member, Joseph, shared a story of how he had been extorted for money in exchange for false promises of success.
Pastor Zaka told me my business will fail if I don't donate 500,000 to his vision fund. I gave it to him, but my business went bankrupt.
Joseph confessed publicly, his voice filled with frustration. Other members joined in, recounting how Zaka's so-called prophecies were nothing more than manipulative tactics to extort money from them. As the testimonies piled up, Pastor Zaka's facade began to crack. The once thriving church was now filled with murmurs of disbelief and betrayal. The church, once full of fervent worshippers, was now a place of division. The members who had once been loyal to Pastor Zaka began to meet in secret, discussing what to do next. Led by the elder, Deacon Olumide, the group decided to confront Zaka once and for all.
Pastor Zaka is leading us down a dangerous path. His actions are no longer a secret. We can't stay silent any longer.
Deacon Olumide said, his voice filled with conviction.
We must take this matter to the authorities and expose him for the fraud he is.
The elders gathered their evidences, financial records, and personal stories from those Zaka had manipulated. The plan was set. Pastor Zaka would be confronted in front of the congregation, and the truth would come out. The Sunday service arrived, and it was unlike any other. As Pastor Zaka stepped onto the stage, he was greeted with silence. Deacon Olumide stood up and raised his hand.
Pastor Zaka, we need to speak with you,
He said firmly. A tense silence fell over the congregation. Mabel stood from her seat, her heart pounding. Pastor Zaka, you have hurt so many of us. You manipulated me, took my trust, and violated me. You promised us healing and deliverance, but all you have given us is pain, Mabel declared, her voice trembling but full of courage. Pastor Zaka's face twisted in anger.
You ungrateful little girl, how dare you accuse me in front of the church?
He shouted, but his voice fell flat as more and more members began to stand up, sharing their stories of deception and betrayal. As the truth unraveled in front of the congregation, the chaos spilled over the outside world. News outlets picked up the story of the fraudulent pastor, and the police were soon involved. A personal investigation was launched into Pastor Zaka's financial activities and personal conduct. I knew something was off about him, said one church member, speaking to a reporter. He always promised blessings, but it was only about the money. He never cared about us. Pastor Zaka, now realizing the magnitude of his downfall, tried to escape. He attempted to flee the country, but it was too late. He was arrested at the airport, his attempt to evade justice thwarted. His fraudulent schemes had finally caught up with him. With Pastor Zaka in custody, the church was left in ruins. The once thriving congregation disbanded, leaving the building empty and silent. Former members met at local community centers, supporting one another as they healed from the trauma Zaka had caused. Mabel found peace in the aftermath of the scandal. Though the scars of her past remained, she had finally found the strength to move on. She began attending a new church, where the pastor genuinely cared for his congregation. and she found comfort in the fellowship of others who had been hurt by Zaka. One day, Mabel spoke to a small group of women, sharing her story with them. I was lost, but I found my way back to God. I won't let what happened to me define my future, she said, her voice steady and strong. The end. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this story, do give this video a like. Comment below. Let's have your opinions. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more interesting stories like this.